Welcome to the Call to Defend podcast, where I sound about as well as Isaac felt going up that mountain. I'm Caleb Elliott, and this is Josh Davis. Josh, how are you?
Your voice just gave out there for a second. I'm really concerned about this episode. I'm really concerned about this episode now. I'm doing well. I feel fine.
Sweet chocolate. I remember when they first invented chocolate.
This kid, I can call you kid because you're younger than me, which people are blown by because you just look older and your body's dying faster than mine.
You're right.
But this kid has been drinking diet soda instead of water because it felt nicer than water, which is going to be better for your throat.
No, I know, but the carbonation was really helping with the soreness of the throat. So. Yeah,
but you have like a whole lot of speaking things you do, and now doing that is not good for your voice. As a music teacher, I'm telling you right now, it's not good for your voice.
I understand that. I'm going to go home and drink water. I don't have anything but water at home.
Good.
So, yeah.
Well, the other option is milk. That's the other acceptable, but not for this case.
I mean, milk is not really the best for.
It's not best for this, but it's the only other acceptable drink in your fridge. That's why I said fridge, because you're allowing room for hot drinks like tea and hot chocolate. Coffee, dump it. It's gone.
Amen.
Anyways, back to the actual topic. And by back to meaning, let's get started with the actual topic.
Yeah.
So, I guess, how about I just summarize where we're at right now, and then I can pick up and we see how everything plays out this passage. So, first episode, we talked about the concept of mountains within the biblical and ancient Near Eastern framework, how they saw it as a place you could go up to convene with the gods, see miracles, some kind of testing. Mountains, as you mentioned, is a struggle to get up there, so it's a test in itself to even ascend the mountain. And we're going to see that, especially with this test. It's going to be taking place. It's also places for, associated with paradise and sacred space because the gods are up there. And there's a whole lot of, I guess you could say, thought behind it as like, the desire is to be on the mountaintop.
Yeah. Because
that's where the gods are. And depending on your religion, within the ancient Near East, that might be a positive, it might be a negative. You know, some of them, they only made humans for like slavery, and so they have a very poor view of humanity. Whereas the biblical narrative is like, there's the original intention is this relationship between God, human, and the spiritual beings. That's supposed to be a three-party family of sorts.
Yeah.
We then get to the Genesis narratives where we see that God does that with the Garden of Eden. And then we didn't read this in Genesis 3, but as we all know, something happens that removes them from the very mountaintop. They're removed from the Garden of Eden as the mountain place. That sacred space, there was a testing moment there. They're removed from it because of that testing moment, that tempting moment. We then went to Noah, and we saw how we provided the going up offering, as we described. That is theologically us vicariously going through the sacrifice to be in God's presence. Is our way of going back to Him and dedicating ourselves to Him. And all those things, I would argue, with Genesis 2 and 6 sets up the entirety of the narrative that we then see going forward, starting with Genesis 22. You could argue Genesis 11, but I kind of want to save that for when we actually hit like Leviticus. It just kind of makes more sense to tie that together. But in terms of this explicit mountain, when you hit Genesis 22, you just see all those narratives kind of flowing together. And yet, it feels like it's not supposed to go in that direction because of the kind of test that's going to be happening here. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, we've really covered a range of topics.
Of course you would say that. You really could say that. I wish like your sickness hurt your puns.
Oh, no. If anything, that filter is going to be even more removed.
Of course. So that brings us to probably one of the hardest tests, at least to read in terms of the mountain narrative. One of the hardest ones is that of Abraham with Isaac. One that skeptics love to throw up against us, ones that Christians and Jews have struggled with just because of the whole question behind it. And we're not going to be dealing with all those kind of questions, but we're going to talk about the theme itself, and it might kind of help maybe take some of that tension away because we're starting to see more what's happening here. This is not an apologetic episode, but I'm just want to put that on recognizing that is a thing that has been thrown at us, even though it's not as much of a problem as people think it is. and as people have struggled with it. But I think when we start to see how the narrative plays out, we can start to see how it's not really an issue. But that's not the intention of this episode.
Okay.
So why don't we go to Genesis 22? You've actually done an episode on this before with our class before.
It was a very quick rundown.
Yeah.
But a rundown nonetheless.
Yeah. So let's start with verse 1. I'll just kind of read the text itself and start. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. Just need to stop right there. That first thing is that caveat, that very clear point that this is a test.
Mm-hmm.
So we already know that we're about to enter like a mountain moment. Not a wilderness testing, but a mountain testing.
Yeah, it's going to be a rocky journey ahead.
Oh my gosh. But yes, we're getting this test, which for us as a reader, we're getting that information. It's kind of like Job. We're getting the background information. We know that there was that discussion in heaven between the Satan and God amongst the divine council. But here we're getting God's going to test Abraham. That's what we know. What Abraham, God doesn't tell Abraham, you get a test. And sometimes it's that test of like, God's not going to directly tell you, I'm going to test you. Because if he did, we're like, oh yeah, let me just quickly find the way to is sometimes that I'm going to put this in front of you and we're going to see how you respond.
Yeah. And the beauty of that is, so I went through a period like that recently, where my faithfulness was tested. And I do believe God set it in front of me, but he also strengthened me through it.
Oh yeah.
Right, like I had confided in you that I was really struggling with it. Mm-hmm. And I'd been praying a lot through it, and I'd had a lot of conflicted feelings, and I was trying to discern what was me and what was God, and God made it very clear, right? And like the perfect time. Because it was when I had gotten back into something that I had taken a break from in order to focus on other things, right? Good things, right? It wasn't like I was doing anything bad at that time. I was still being productive, still doing good things. But I came back to it, and the second I came back to it, God reminded me of why I had started doing it in the first place, and instantly strengthened my resolve.
Yeah.
Right, and instantly restored my faithfulness to me.
I love that what you were kind of just going on about is how that test revealed something to you.
Right.
Which I think is important because, just to read one of my notes here, tests are to show to the one being tested their true self and the public their true self, of which Abraham kind of needs to be tested given that he has failed several times on his own and his own Eden moments, such as lying about his wife twice, with one of them being right after God just promised him this covenant was going to happen. Immediately turns to going his own way. And so he also worked with his wife to do what seemed right in their own eyes, to assume a child for themselves apart from God, again, after God just made that promise, by taking their slave and working through her. And then when things didn't really go the way they wanted to relationally, they then turned to Abraham saying, well, you can go abuse her. And it's like, now we're just derailing all over the place with how we're treating people and how that's completely like foreign to the way God has been telling him to do things. And so we get here is Abraham is not being tested for God's knowledge, as we already know. God has already seen this. He knows Abraham's heart. He knows he also knows his covenant with Abraham. He's going to fulfill that covenant.
Right.
But this is for Abraham to almost kind of like see for himself, after all these moments that I've completely gone AWOL, am I actually going to trust God with this test, or am I going to do what's right in my own eyes? Which, I don't know how I never picked up on this when, like I picked up on it like a few months ago, where the Proverbs, like, the way this seems right to man leads to death, how that is completely just pulling on Genesis 3.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's like when Paul says we live by faith, not by sight.
Right.
He's playing on that language as well. It's not him saying, sight's a bad thing, but it's where's your faith? Is it faith in your own senses or in God's own wisdom and judgment? And now Abraham's about to get this test, which we haven't read what the test is.
Yeah.
We just know that there's a test. And this test is going to be a pretty hefty one because he has shown time and time again that he does not seem to truly trust God's covenant with him.
Right.
God makes a covenant, let me handle it my way. I'm going to protect you. God will say, like, I'm going to provide a way for you to be like the father of all nations. And then the second he thinks he might die, he's like, no, I got this. Or the second where he says, I'm going to provide a son for you. Oh, that must mean I must do it. And it's like,
Right.
and I was like, okay, now we're going to test you in such a way that there is no, you
Right.
can't skirt around this.
Yep.
You need to see right now for yourself, are you actually in this? Because I've been in this the entire time.
Right. And that's well demonstrated by, the splitting of the animal. Right?
Yes.
And God passing in between. Right. Abraham never passed in
No.
between. This is, in essence, this is his passing in between.
Yeah.
Right? This is, I'm willing to give up everything. Right. My everything. Abraham has staked everything on Isaac.
Yeah.
I am willing to give that up to be in this.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I think it's in that passage, the one you just mentioned, is we get that word that we saw for Adam with Eve, that visionary thing. That wasn't like God just like conked him out and let me go through.
Yeah.
Like Abraham is seeing something here. He's well aware of what this covenant is.
Right.
And so now I want to say his from the whole percent of the bargain, because it's not like it was that, but it's the are you truly, to show Abraham himself, are you truly with me?
Right.
And to show the rest of everyone else, to show even the reader, is Abraham with me? Because even these tests, I think, we think rightly about the fact that they're tests for ourselves. We think about the tests for the community, but also like the New Testament, the Old Testament and New Testament authors are well aware there will be readers after them.
Right.
And so they're putting this on the table. That's why Paul says it's there to make all wise who read it. That idea of like Abraham's test is meant to challenge you even right now, and
Yeah.
what that means. Let's just finish. Let's just finish verse 1 where he says, Abraham, and he said, here I am. He said, take your son, your only son. Of course, we know that
Yep.
Isaac's not the only son, but it's that idea of like he's the one of the promise.
Right.
That promised son,
Right.
that covenant
The
son.
firstborn, if you will. Right. Like, because in the sense that God calls David the firstborn son. Okay, obviously David is not the firstborn son. But firstborn in that context, in the ancient Near Eastern context in particular, meant most significant.
Yeah.
Right? It was the most important. It was, for example, Isaac, right? The son of the promise. He would receive Abraham's inheritance, not Ishmael.
Right.
In that sense, he's the firstborn.
And what's interesting, as we were just saying with that idea, is we see frequently how the biologically, chronologically firstborn are frequently passed over for the
Esau
younger.
and Jacob comes to mind, obviously.
Yes, so many of them. Or with Joseph's sons.
Right.
It's also flipped. You just see this constant flipping of that cultural flip of, that's not how I'm going to do things here.
Yeah.
That's not how this works. So is that only son, that promised son of the covenant, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering or as a going up offering
Right.
on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you.
So immediately out of the gate here, we get the parallel. Right? We are going to take a son, an only son,
Yeah.
to the region of Jerusalem, because Moriah is where Jerusalem is.
Yeah.
So to the region of Jerusalem to be a sacrifice, a going up sacrifice that connects you to God.
Not only that,
Who does that sound like?
not only that, Moriah means to see and to understand. So he's going
Right,
to the land of
exactly.
understanding, the land of seeing,
Yep.
which, think again
Cool.
about the parallels, that
Yeah.
there is that seeing of that fulfillment of one God's promise
Yeah.
and of those testings. Like
Yep.
everything will be seen. So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, or the going up offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Now, it doesn't specify exactly which mountain it is yet, right? Because
Right.
God just said, I'm going to go to one of the mountains of Moriah. So they're going there, they're preparing to go there. God's providing more information as they go along. We don't always get that
I was
information.
going to say, I'm guessing this is primarily the Spirit, right, is guiding him, right? He's being guided by the Spirit At least the text doesn't say that God continues to speak to him.
Yeah.
It may just be, the Spirit draws you to places, right? Like, we may not vocally hear God, right?
Yeah.
We may not even internally hear God, but there is sometimes just that draw that you can't quite explain, right? There's just leading you to specific places, right? Specific times, specific moments,
Yeah.
where God just leads you, and excuse me, and he leads you there for a specific purpose, right? And obviously we know what the purpose is here. I did pick up on verse 3, saddled his donkey.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Going to Jerusalem on a donkey. Again, I'm not trying to,
Not trying to be anachronistic, but also you just see the parallels.
You see the parallels.
Yeah. It's one of those where you see, if we were to follow like Matthew and how he kind of treats it's not necessarily always a prophecy, but him playing on the typology.
Right.
And he's treating it more like a typological prophecy.
Right.
Where you read the context and you're like, well, it doesn't sound like it's going to be about Jesus. But then he applies it and he's like, okay, now bring it back to the context and see how there's something paralleled here. He's not like he's saying the whole Hosea, like I call my son out of Egypt. It's like not directly is that passage reflecting on Jesus when it was being written, but at the same time Matthew's kind of like see how this all tying together.
Exactly, and Matthew, I believe it's Matthew, says that and it was spoken to the prophets that he shall be called the Nazarene. Well, the prophets never say that.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's talking about the typology, right? He's talking about how out of nothing comes everything, right? How out of desolation essentially comes hope, and that is only through God.
So we get to verse 4 now. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar.
Third day.
Third day, looking up, sees where he's supposed to be going. If we were to take the Trinitarian understanding of things, every time we're God just, I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you where to go. It's not directly saying the Spirit, but with the Trinitarian saying, you can see how the Spirit might be in play here, guiding him. So then Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. It's interesting, Abraham's response. Now, there's different thoughts on what he could be doing here. It could be playing to Hebrews, whereas the idea he has full confidence that God's going to bring him back to his son. Mm-hmm. There's the idea that maybe he's just saying to just not bring any question. Could be both. He'd be like, I trust that God can do something here.
But
also, let me just make sure that no one thinks I'm about to go do something sketchy. And it's the...
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, right? Because let's consider the culture that Abraham is in.
Yeah.
Right? Sacrificing your son is commonplace.
Yeah. A lot of the pagans,
Yeah. That's what they did, right? That
especially
you sacrificed your firstborn son.
Yeah. Sometimes when they're even infants.
Oh, absolutely, right. Infanticide was extremely common.
Yeah.
And you wonder why God sent a flood. But so it's interesting then that you say that, but it's because Abraham lived so differently from them, right? And I've heard many people say this before, and I agree that this passage is kind of the ultimate inversion of paganism. But I don't want to jump the gun there. So,
yeah. Well, no, yeah. With the idea of the inverting of the pagan, you have it's so fascinating how many times the text really I want to say tries. The text really does fascinating work and all these layers of different either reflections or teachings or actions. They're all happening at once. Mm-hmm. I mentioned this earlier in a different recording with Jonah. It's reflecting on Jonah's experience, but it's also providing the reflection for Israel's experience at the same time, while it's also playing into some other prophetic and sometimes cosmic language, such as when he was swallowed by the great fish.
Yeah.
And it's doing all this triple duty, and you could read all three and see completely how it works.
Right.
You could read one at a time, or you can also see how they're all playing together at the same time.
And Lamentations kind of does something similar.
Yeah.
Right, where you can read Lamentations just as, a lot of people do, right? Chapter by chapter, verse by verse, just go right in order. Or you can read it across.
Yeah.
Right, so you can read it Aleph, then Bet,
Yeah.
and Gimel, right? You can go across letter by letter and see how Jeremiah is structuring it that way, right? So you kind of like how you're talking about, right? You can read it a few different ways. You can read it all together like that. You can read it separately. It's really pretty cool.
And it's not like one of those where like somebody Christians be like, oh yeah, you can all interpret it. It's like, no. It's like, this was an intentional double, triple duty of
Right.
like, I'm making you think, oh, like, here's the narrative. Now think about that for your own life.
Right.
Now think about it also for the past, for the people of the past. Because it's like that idea of like them learning from the past for their future. Like, you cannot move on if you don't know what's happened before. And it's doing a ton of that. Even here in this passage, where it's like that, even with that idea of like, look at these other nations, what they're doing, and how Abraham, even in this moment, which seems like it could be pagan, with what we're about to do, there's still that flipping, where it's like causing you to reflect on, okay, what am I doing in my life that might look similar, but the outcome is still very clearly different. And is that just that kind of reflection, even in those questions, like, again, some of those like, oh yeah, whatever you interpret is how, like, no. Here's what it means. Now here's all the ways it's forcing you to think.
Right.
Which is just so different than like just like, oh, that's what it means to me, is how I interpret it. Kind of thing. So we then get, in verse 6, Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son.
Yes, obviously, the son carrying the wood up to the place of his sacrifice.
Yeah.
Who does that sound like?
So we get to verse 7, and Isaac said to his father, Abraham, my father, and he said, here I am, my son. He said, behold the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering?
So, Josh, I don't know if you can see the hat that I'm wearing.
Dad.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine my daughter ask. Like if God had asked me to do this, and we're going up the mountain, and my daughter turns to me, she says, Daddy, where's the lamb? Oh, dude, I'm losing it right there.
Well, here's the thing, too. Like, so remember, this is a mountain. They're not just,
Yeah.
like, pulling up somewhere, and they're like, okay, here we are, and we get going. He's like, they're climbing this mountain.
Yeah.
It's probably a struggle, depending on how high this mountain is. And they're climbing up it. This entire time, this is still part of Abraham's test. The test is not just put him there and ta-da. It is the continue, because any moment Abraham could turn around.
Yeah, say I'm not doing this.
And say, yeah, I'm out.
And there had to be that so overwhelming desire to do that, right? To say, I can't do it. I can't give up everything, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing, too. In some way, this is also a test on Isaac.
Oh, yeah.
Because Isaac is picking up that the sacrifice is not there. His father then says in the next statement, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. And so they continue to go up. But that question, pondering like, why are we going up? That could be like a question like, what's wrong with my dad? Why is did he forget this? There's also the question like, why are we going up and there is no sacrifice? What's going on here?
I am personally, I guess it's really my own headcanon because Scripture doesn't clarify. I am of the headcanon. Isaac knew. I believe Isaac knew.
Well, I'm talking about like the proceeding into that, into there.
No,
Probably
I
coming
know,
to
but-
that conclusion.
But especially, I think that's why he asks the question in the first place.
Yeah.
I think he asks because he knows, right? You're going up. He knows because of the culture that he lives in, right? We mentioned it briefly, that paganism, it was commonplace to sacrifice your son, right? And so Isaac is looking at the cultures around him, And now here's his father going up, no sacrifice in hand, with fire, knife, wood. Isaac's not an idiot.
And there might be some layer of confusion in him still too, because usually as the firstborn, he knows Ishmael came before him.
Right, yeah.
So it's also like, am I the sacrifice? What?
Yeah.
One, this isn't right. Also, where's Ishmael to bail me out of this?
Yeah, really.
But like I said, I think that there was probably those previous questions are probing at him that eventually led to perhaps that conclusion of, okay, why? What's going on here? And now Isaac could have turned around and ran, but he trusts in his father's word of what he trusts God will do. God says that Abraham's saying that God will provide, and Isaac seems to see that as good enough and continues on with him. Out of love for God, his father, and loyalty and faith, he continues on. They're both trekking up that mountain.
Had to be such a long climb. Especially after that question, I guarantee you not another word was said.
Dude, imagine
I guarantee you not another
even if it was like a
word
short mountain, that would feel like an eternity climbing that mountain.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like, Abraham could be saying, I trust that God's going to do this. He also could be like, there's a chance he might be also like slightly like, but what if he doesn't?
Right.
And we kind of see that later on the narrative of kind of like, okay, it doesn't, maybe he's not, and then he goes to do the very thing he's going to do. Even though he also believes that God will provide, but then he's also about ready to carry through. It's kind of like Hebrews thought like, the thought of Hebrews is that, okay, God's going to bring him back. And then so maybe Abraham's like, okay, maybe God's not going to provide the lamb, but he will bring my son back. Okay.
Right.
So he's still trusting in God, but also like, I kind of wish he was providing the lamb all up until that moment. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Right.
We're climbing the mountain right now, and that question has been asked, that probing question of, where's the sacrifice?
Yeah.
We have these things, but there is no lamb. The lamb's not here.
Yeah. Well, he is, but just not in the sense that they mean.
Right. So we go to verse 9. When they came to the place of which God had told them, Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son, laid him on the altar on top of the wood.
So I think it's important here. A lot of modern Christians paint Isaac as like a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Like 9 and 10 years old. He's 37 when this happens. He could very easily take his 100-plus-year-old father.
Take him out.
Take him out easily.
Here's the thing, too. Abraham trekking a mountain at an old age.
Oh, yeah. I mean, provided, right, different culture, they walked everywhere, right? He was probably in a lot better shape than most 120-year-olds around today.
Still, though.
Yeah.
At that, trekking up that mountain, carrying all this weight, dude's got to be ripped.
Oh, yeah. Got to be jacked out of his mind. But yeah, no, still though, right? I mean, he is over 100 years old. Isaac, not exactly in his prime. He's 37, but Isaac also probably hench, right? Modern day himbo. It could pretty easily take Abraham here. Yeah. Right? I mean, Isaac is not a young boy. He's a full-grown man. And yet, Abraham binds him up. I doubt Abraham, took him by surprise on the top of the mountain and got him, when he wasn't looking.
Look over there. Woo!
Exactly. This is a willing act by Isaac.
Yeah. Yeah, because remember, it's just him. This is the two of them.
Right.
So that means either Isaac surrendered or Abraham overpowered him.
Which The latter I just don't see as possible.
It doesn't seem as likely, no matter how jacked he is.
Yeah, really. Because again, Isaac probably equally, if not more, jacked.
Well, because he probably would be like having his son do a lot of his work,
Right.
at that point, because he
he's
is of
old.
that age. Yeah, he is of that age. I mean, his age was the reason why he doubted the idea of him being able to have a son to begin with. Not even really his age, but his age in a sense, because he was like, I'm old, I'm not going to be here much longer. Right. But then also like, my wife's old.
Yeah.
She ain't producing anymore. What are you going
She
on
didn't
about?
in the first place, right? She was barren.
Yeah. Like she couldn't even at this age for the most part.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, yeah, there was that level of like, okay, if God's gonna tell you to do something, He's gonna do it. But also like, it wasn't like it was like, he'd be like, nah, man, you can't do it. He's like, wait, isn't she barren and past that time?
Yeah.
God's like, yeah, that's the point. I'm gonna do something here. Yeah, we get this, like you were just saying, we don't get this huge time jump between this chapter and the next chapter. It's not like we just jumped 30 years. The narrative seems to continue in such a way that is fairly recently after. So like Isaac is definitely an adult at this point of time. And again, that testing for him is a test of him, of father and son.
Right.
Father and son are being tested in a sense, which kind of plays into a parallel, minus the father not being himself tested.
Right.
But Jesus in his
From
prayer
I was going to say Gethsemane on
to praying
all the way
that
even to the cross.
Yeah, that testing, if you will, of sort, not necessarily the same, but of sort for him.
Well, and as you mentioned, right, the testing can also be a revelation to the general public.
Right.
I would argue that was more so what the testing was for.
Right, and that's why I'm saying it's not, Isaac and Abraham, they're not doing this in front of other people.
Right, true. Okay,
that's being written down for other people to read about. But Jesus is doing this in front of a whole lot of people. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. So here's an interesting thing. I have to reread on the exact sources, but there are some early rabbinic teachings on this, where in their mind, some of them almost see Abraham almost not passing the test. In their mind, they're seeing, depending on like, if it was like the Targums or something else, that God gives us a very specific kind of command regarding preparing an offering in certain texts. And Abraham starts to go beyond that. And so for some of them are kind of like, okay, maybe he's passing a test and he's giving it to God, but also like he's not doing what God said. He's going beyond what God said, which is why God interjects. And then some of them are kind of like, well, no, God, he is passing the test because this is what he's supposed to do. And some of them are like, did he fail? Even though God said he passed? And that's when Hebrews kicks in and is like, let me just clear it up for you. Yeah. He trusts that God will bring him back. And that's very much, like that's the mind of the author of Hebrews.
Right.
And so it's interesting how you see within this Jewish mindset, this back and forth, like, what's going on here? And the author of Hebrews is seems like, no. This is when God said he passed, he's seen the fullness of this faith being displayed, that he's supposed to do this. Now, where's maybe this extra step that Abraham's supposed to go beyond? Maybe. But maybe that's Abraham going beyond in his faith of what God will do.
Right. And I don't necessarily know that I would agree then with the rabbis, right? Because when does God stop him? Right? He could have stopped him right after he had prepared.
Right.
But he doesn't.
Yeah.
He stops him in the very next verse after Abraham picks up the knife.
Right. And I just bring it up because it's just interesting to see the different thoughts you have. And then you have Hebrews who just comes and is like, nah, man, this was full faith.
Right.
Abraham is taken as like, okay, I don't see the offering here. And that's why some of the rabbis were kind of questioning, because they're like, Abraham just said that God will provide an offering. Some of them, I guess that's not all, but some of the rabbis are like, okay, God's going to provide an offering. And now he's starting to make Isaac fully the offering. And then that's when Hebrews kicks in and is like, no, he's still trusting that either God will provide something or that he will raise Isaac from the dead. And he was like, this is all faith. There's no point in this spot here where Abraham starts to fail the test.
Right.
But that question, like, maybe that is a question going through Abraham's mind, like, where is that lamb? I guess I'm going to do this. And it's like, because I trust God. And is that full faith, even as gut-wrenching as it is, like, pick up that knife. I'm just imagining, like, tears pouring down.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
Hand shaking, like, I can't imagine him, like, confidently doing it.
Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit I don't know that I could do it.
Yeah.
Certainly not with how cute my daughter is right now.
It's a heavy test.
Yeah.
It's not, but it's a test that God knew Abraham could bear.
1 Corinthians 10
Or else he wouldn't have given the test.
Right, yeah.
Meaning that like he could bear the stress of the test.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that Abraham only could pass the test. He could still fail it, but he knew that Abraham had the potential to fulfill that test. He had the ability to fulfill that test.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he just provided a test like, there's no way he can ever do this. In any possible world, there's no way he could do this. It's like, he can't do this. I know he will because I'm God. But,
exactly.
But I also know that he has that. He has the ability to stop, but he has the ability to pass this. This is not beyond him. Especially when he relies on me for this fulfilling of trust and what's going to happen. But yeah, like you said, we then get to Abraham. What's interesting is that it's the angel of the Lord now. So,
yes.
So earlier it's just Elohim who says this. Contextually, we're seeing that that's usually referring to just Yahweh specifically.
Right.
Did a whole presentation on this reference to the two powers. But we have the angel of the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think I just bring it up because it's important because he goes, Abraham. He says, here I am. Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God. So referring to a third person, and then saying, because you do not withhold him from me.
First person.
First person. We go third person referring to the one who made the command, third person referring to one who gave the command, first person to the one you're giving the offering to.
Right.
As if he was the one who made the claim to go do this. Which shows that, okay, we got two Yahwehs here who are also one Yahweh at the same time.
One being, two persons.
Whoa. With the third potentially guiding him up the mountain.
I would say so.
Where you're seeing that, okay, the full Godhead is engaging here and conversing with him, saying,
right.
Okay, you have passed this test. On the test of seeing, which I completely missed this in my notes. I'm upset that I did this. So, Moriah, as I mentioned, is visible. Visible of the Lord is one letter different than Mara, of which means appearance or seeing, and they share the same root, of which means to see or understand or reveal. So this whole, it's not even just like understanding and seeing, it's revealing. Right. On the test of revealing, on the mountain of revealing for this test, will reveal Abraham's faith, but also God's faithfulness to the covenant. That this is the son I'm going to work through. I'm not just going to take him away and never get him back to you. We are going to do this. This is the promised son. I'm going to do this. Because then we get the next little bit here. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram. God provides a sacrifice in place, as Abraham is saying, okay, God's provided a sacrifice. I don't see one, so I'm going to do this because I trust God. Trust that he'll bring him back. God provides sacrifice.
Yeah.
On the
provides
a ram on the Mount of Revealing.
Not a lamb.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, he provides a ram, not a lamb. Which, yeah, like I said, it's interesting he would do so. Because similarities, but not the same.
Not the same. There is a lamb present, though.
Yes, there is a lamb present. I think with all the typology you've laid down before, I think we know what that lamb is.
Yeah. Or
who that lamb is. And so now we get Abraham lifted up his eyes. Behold, there is in the thicket, caught by the horns. Abraham goes and takes the ram and offered up as the going up offering instead of his son.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, Isaac did go up. Mm-hmm. He ascended the mountain.
Right.
So in a sense, he wasn't like vicariously sent up to Yahweh in the heavens.
Yeah.
But he did ascend the mountain. They did ascend together, and it was in that testing that offering is prepared and is being done with. But then you have the official offering that is made, that's going up, of which
again, the placing on the altar is in itself an offering.
right.
It's the altar is a place where you go to surrender things to God.
Right.
And that's why when people do like altar calls, which I realize are controversial, but for the sake of the argument, let's just use it. The altar call, the point is to go and kneel at the place of full surrender, right? Of fully giving up to God. Right, so just by Abraham laying down Isaac as an offering on this altar, he has given him up.
Right.
And he has, in effect, said to God, you gave me him, I'm giving him back. Right, and so then when the author of Hebrews says, and in doing so, he received his son back from the dead.
Yeah.
Right, because he was placed on that altar as an offering.
Right.
And then Abraham received him back.
Right. Also think about like the purpose of what the going up offering is, and how he defined it earlier. Like it's the vicariously going up, realigning with God. All like if you want to go learn more about go to the previous podcast and all that stuff. But he's doing that with his son, and then he does it in full, in another sense, with this ram, which makes sense given the previous instances that he's had with God and going in opposition. This is him like almost like. This is God saying, go up and rededicate yourself to me.
Right.
And you're going to do so in the fullest sense, because that is the promise I gave you, was Isaac. And you have neglected all my other promises. Even this one, by bringing about Ishmael, who I still love, because he's my image.
Exactly.
And he exists, and I want him to exist. But you have gone against me. This test is like this test is a mixture of that test of, okay, for Abraham and Isaac, for the people who are reading it, but also it's God's command of saying, I made a covenant with you. I'm upholding my end. I'm doing what I promised.
Right.
You have been undedicated to me. Go be dedicated.
Yeah.
And be dedicated with the very thing I promised you, because I gave you Isaac. He's not just your son. I gave him to you. So you're going to give him back. You're going to trust that you can give. You're going to trust that I will give him to you because I promised you. Because I keep my word. But you're going to show that you're completely dedicated to trusting me in this promise. So it's not even like him like saying like, meet me in the middle. Like, hey, we got to work this. I was like him saying like, you have this tendency to take my promises and go away without them. You're not doing that with my promised son.
Right.
This son, you need to trust fully in my hands, not in yours. Because in your hands, you've almost brought down two kings who did nothing wrong, at least within those texts, and you allowed you and your wife, and he's basically saying, Abraham, you did this because you allowed your wife to do this, to abuse this woman who shouldn't have been involved in the first place. You're done getting involved.
Yeah.
You're trusting him entirely with me. You're dedicating your life. You're entrusting him with me. It's not a work. It's your complete and total surrender to what I will do, not what you will do.
Right.
So we then get to what's really cool here is then we get the after he provided the offering, and then Abraham makes the offering, we get verse 14. So Abraham called the name of that place, the Lord will provide. Very important that that's the grammar. It's not the Lord has provided. The Lord will provide. The idea of, one, God has provided, but he will continue to provide. And also, that lamb has not been provided yet.
Not yet.
At least in the text. There was a ram provided. But also the idea like, God will provide every time that he promises that he will. And that he will always provide. But there's also that lamb. It's on that mountain that Abraham said there was to be a lamb, but a ram was provided. A lamb will be provided at some point. And then you even get the next bit where it says, as it is said, to this day.
Right.
Meaning, like, after Abraham, it's still said on the mount of Yahweh, it shall be provided. Which again is, yes, you have provided past tense, but it shall be, meaning it will be provided.
Right.
It's still that forward-looking providence.
Yeah, and how that echoes throughout the rest of Scripture.
Yeah.
Right, and I won't get ahead of us too much, right? But I mean, any time where a mountain is declared to be a mountain of God, and there's many mountains throughout the Bible where this is the mountain of God.
Yeah.
Like you get Sinai, Zion, Horeb, Carmel, right? In the region of Moriah, right?
Yeah.
Whichever mountain that is. There's always a provision there.
Yeah.
There's always some type of providing there.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to just see how that statement there, and especially given when this is being written, because there was just provision on a mountain.
Yeah.
Right? Moses has just come down from Sinai, given the law, and now here's this provision as well from God.
You have that thematic of every mountain God will provide on,
Yeah.
but also you have that mountain in Moriah means that God will provide.
Right.
And that is the name of that mountain, is that God will provide there. God will provide, and he will always provide.
Yeah.
And then as you were just saying, that thematic continuation to the other mountains, which are, in a sense, calling back to Eden and Moriah. Eden in the sense of, this is where God is.
Yeah.
Moriah in the sense of, God is providing. Which he provides in Eden too, but that promise of,
Certainly.
he will provide. That
Yep.
future providing is coming, will be fulfilled. But yeah, it's just such a cool thing. Is not, God has provided. He will. And it's still called that when Moses is penning this.
Right.
Which I just think is just fascinating. But then, we might as well just finish the chapter. Angel of the Lord called to Abram a second time from heaven. So this is interesting. We've talked about many times before how the angel of the Lord is, human body of sort, or human
Right.
presence, appearance of. He's in the sky. You got a physical being in the sky.
Yeah.
Who also claimed to be the one that is being sacrificed to or being offered to, which I think is just wild. Is not like he's just speaking out from the heavens,
Right.
like the voice is up there. No, there's a physical manifestation of sort just floating there, like, hey, Abraham.
Yep.
But he goes, okay, so by myself I have sworn, declares Yahweh, because you have done this and not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply your offspring. So that continuation, but also like restating of that covenant, saying, because you've dedicated your son to me, I'm going to continue with the covenant that I promised you.
Right.
And I will surely multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, which is just
Right.
beautiful to think
Yeah.
about, the skies and all this stuff. And as the sand that is on the seashore, and your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies, and your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So there we even get another, I will provide. And that providing is that blessing that will be to all the nations.
Yeah.
And that's still on the mountain that this is being said to. We're getting that other provision that is going to come to all nations, to all people, which means it's not just to his descendants, not just to the Hebrews. This is an early text showing that God's plan is to bring the entire world back, to bring the Gentiles back as well, which
Isaiah 49 intensifies.
Which, like, some people there's some Jews who probably try it doesn't say that, or like blah blah blah. It's like, say it was a later thing. It's like, no, we get this promise from the get go.
Yeah.
Yes, we have the issue that happens in Genesis 11 where the nation split and God has now inherited the Hebrews, and he's basically Romans won the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But it's him saying he's ticked, okay, we're done. But we're also not done. Meaning like you're going to
Go
pass.
sit in timeout.
Go sit in timeout. I'm gonna work through this way to fix all this because I don't know the only way that can be done. And so we get that promise because you obeyed with my voice. So then Abraham returned to his young men. So he goes back with his son. So they're not like, hey, where's your son? Like they're all back together, all four of them. They arose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham lived at Beersheba. And then we just kind of continue on from there with the rest of the narrative of Abraham. But you just get so many of those. It's just a really beautiful text. It's a heavy text. But you get that Genesis 6 and that Genesis 2 of, okay, God's presence is there. I mean, you have all three. Two explicitly, one implicitly, there on the mountain. You have the testing. You have provision. You have also promises. All these things being done on the mountain. And also the test going up the mountain.
Yeah.
All of which is then also met with this offering that ascends to the heavens. Like the mountain is not enough to truly get back to God. There is still something that has to get them truly back to being with God. And so there's that question of, this text is not directly asking, but the question of who is going to ascend the mountain? So where we're not just like getting close enough to where we then can offer to God. We can now be with God, and that He will be with us on that mountain, and it will be high enough, if you will, to be on that mountain with Him. And man, it's just, in my mind, it kind of, with that understanding, it kind of picks away a little bit at those skeptical remarks. Maybe not all, but some of them, when, like I said, this is not an apologetic podcast, but I think some of those remarks, you see that they don't really need to be there when you start to see how the text is really starting to play out. So, especially with the previous narrative.